Good morning, good morning, good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Let me just throw this out there. Good morning to all of those watching from Tenerife. Mr. Muirhead, good morning. Andy Darville says, no chance, Gary, I'm not that good. That is in response to this. No, let me go back a little bit further. Andy Darville says, morning, everyone. How are we all? Played 3 days of golf in a Ryder Cup style competition this weekend. Just gone. Our team won, but I'm feeling it today. Which Gary then responded to that Andy and my son Fred should have a head-to-head on the golf course. Fred on Thursday last week finally shot under 90. It's only 89, but he shot under 90. So yes, he's feeling fairly good about his golf at the moment. Andy Darvell saying, "No chance, Gary. I'm not that good." I don't think Fred would claim to be that good, but yeah, he's getting there. It is getting there. Mark Whiting is here as well. I've got a button for Mark here somewhere. That one. There we are. How was your weekend, everyone? We were planning to go up to London to support my son's girlfriend who was running the marathon. Didn't go in the end. Both of my boys went up there in advance. They went up there in the morning. We were supposed to be going up there in the afternoon to see her across the finish line. And they basically said, it is Bedlam. Stay where you are. So that's exactly what we did. I thought that was the whole idea of golf anyway. I ever told you about my father-in-law? We used to play every Sunday morning, long before I was married, actually. This was all part of me trying to get in with the father-in-law before he was my father-in-law. And we used to go and play golf on a Sunday morning, only 9 holes, but we basically used to go play 9 holes and then go for a big slap-up breakfast. That was the deal. Anyway, one morning, and neither of us were particularly good, but he was particularly bad. And on one hole, you kind of need to picture it. It was about, 130, 140 yards, par 3, with a big slope up to one side. My father-in-law sliced one off the tee, and it kind of veered off up the slope and rolled right across the green, straight into the hole. A hole in one. There were 2 guys on top of the hill where he sliced his shot who did the Mexican wave, a 2-man Mexican wave. And I said to my father-in-law, "You do realise that means you're buying drinks for everyone in the clubhouse?" And he said, and I quote, "Sod that," and we finished the last few holes in a bit of a hurry. Yeah, true story. Mick Norton has joined us from Wakefield. Jim Turner has joined us from a little bit closer to Aero. Gary Muirhead says, "Nice shirt. Have you got call or a meeting today?" No meetings, no call. My new channel, my Tiny Politics channel, is started, and I'm trying. I wouldn't say I'm dressing up. That would be a lie, because I am, my shirt's hanging out at the moment. I'm not getting carried away with it. But I just figure if I'm going to be talking about politics, to turn up in a t-shirt, I think would be too easy to dismiss as I am just a bloke at the end of the day, but yeah, I'm kind of dressing up, and I'm filming another video a bit later today. I have to say, I've been quite pleased with how the first few videos and first few pieces over on Substack have gone. It's quite weird starting from scratch. With Jim's here now. I'm sure he would tell you this. You kind of get into a routine. You send a video out into the ether, and you've got a pretty good idea. After you've been doing it for as long as we have, you've got a pretty good idea of how it's going to perform. It'll do a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand, maybe 10,000 views, whatever it might be. And then when you go back to starting a new channel from scratch, all of a sudden, if you get 10 views, if you get 20 views, it's cause for celebration. It's been quite a turnaround. Dan Cullen is with us. Mercy Johnston is with us. My apologies. There is a LinkedIn user with us. I'm going to take a wild stab and guess that is probably Gary Major. Morning, Gary, if that is you. I haven't seen you for a while, but good to have you back in our midst. Got a big old show for you today. Lots of stuff, including from Demolition, Kabelko, Komatsu, and a weird one. And John the Ball. That's the wrecking ball, not the other type of ball. John the Ball is in our midst. Good morning to you, John. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Let's crack on, shall we? Because, as I say, we do have plenty to bring you this morning. So let's have a bit of this. It is Monday, the 27th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry, shortlisted for a UK Construction Week Role Model Prize and a Prince Among Men. My introductions are getting longer by the day. I'll go back to the proper ones tomorrow, I promise. In today's show, Demolition dump trucks dominate. Kobelco reaches high in demolition, Komatsu wheel loaders in action, and it's a dozer, but not as we know it. Plus, in today's edition of Mark's Monologue, it turns out not all lives are created equal. And I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Jamie Tavui, who is watching over on Instagram as under his name over there, which is the Polynesian Plant Op. Yes, Polynesian. What have we got here? No, it wasn't Gary Major. It was James Mack from Australia. Annoying that LinkedIn doesn't show the names. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Ken Hatcher is here enjoying the sunshine. And Jim Turner saying, I'm a new starter. It's all still Greek to me. Some videos take off and others don't. I just post things I find interesting. Hope others might do too. That's all you can do. All you can do. And Jamie's just said, morning all, watching from IG today as opposed to LinkedIn, hopefully be able to partake in any polls. You won't from there actually, but there aren't any polls. Well, I'm not planning any polls. We may well come up with one on the fly, but I'm not planning any polls, but they don't work over on Instagram. Best place to watch this, as much as it's a frustrating platform, best place to watch this is always YouTube. Always YouTube. Excuse me, the lag is slightly less. The interactivity seems to work better. There's no problems with recognition. It all seems to work fairly smoothly, whereas the others all a bit hit and miss. Anywho, people, let's actually start the show, shall we? We're going to have a bit of Caterpillar, and then we're going all things Demolition. Right, we're going to kick things off with some Demolition ADT action. Sit back and enjoy.
In business for over 90 years. Right now, we're currently in the fourth generation of Benevento family running the business. It hasn't changed much other than the size. I'm the general manager of the Sand and Stone division. I oversee the Wilmington operation for mining, recycling, and trucking and sales. And I also oversee all the New Hampshire branches we have of sand and gravel, quarry, trucking. What we produce creates the infrastructure of the country. We supply our concrete and asphalt plants to make concrete and asphalt, which build roads, sidewalks, schools, hospitals, libraries.
I'm 32 years old, was brought into this family business, kind of been in it my whole life. Had a lot of other jobs growing up, but found my way here after college. We've grown a lot in 10 years, added more employees than I can count, pieces of equipment than I can count. I think our biggest success is really just our vertical integration and being able to control the stone we make, the sand we make. Those products then go into our asphalt and concrete, and we have full control over those products from start to finish, being able to make sure it's the highest quality.
People are die-hard yellow, and you put something different in front of them, you get kickback right away. And we've had all positive feedback since then about the ease of operations, the simplicity of the machine, and the visibility. With the emission standards we have to follow now, it's been a lot more reliable, which has been really, really helpful. The transparent bucket feature of the Devlon loaders has been very positive to the operators for a safety standpoint and just ease of operation as they're loading trucks in all different aspects of the day-to-day travel, so it's very important on the safety side. The other big thing was access and the cab layout. They really like how the cab's laid out. It's spacious, but everything's within reach, and it's not overly computerized and technical. Relationships are key in all parts of this industry between our customers, our vendors. Loyalty is also a giant part of our business. Our dirt's not any different than anyone else's dirt, but the service and the relationship makes us different than the other competitors in this market. Having that support makes all the difference.
Giovanni and Gilda have been great to work with from Equipment East. They've just always been on point with any problems we have and able to get in touch with them very simply and give us what we need.
When the Albanese family started the dealership, we had a great working relationship with them on the construction side, and they were getting into this market, and Devlon wanted to expand into the larger equipment in this area, so we kind of put our trust in them and gave them a shot, and it's been a great process for us.
So the reason I tell people to try or switch to Devlon equipment would be, number one, durability. There's some machines, even in this yard, running around 10,000 hours that are perfectly fine. From my experience, any customer that I got that came from a different manufacturer, they never jump back. We just have to show them and give them that opportunity, and we're batting 100.
Nice operation and some damn fine dump trucks as well. Hope you enjoyed that. What do we got next? Oh, yeah, we're doing a bit of demolition with Cabelco in a second. So stick around. I'll be back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, interesting. Devlon dealership keen to identify the ADT not overly computerized or technical. I do wonder if we will get a bit of a backlash on that. Actually, some of the manufacturers, or particularly the dealers who are face-to-face with the customers, actually going full circle and saying, actually, this one isn't full to the brim with AI. I wonder if we'll see that. Anyway, I promised you a bit of Cabelco high-reach excavator action, and that you should jolly well have. Here we go. Dan says it's very hot in this mini digger in Wimbledon. Wimbledon? Weren't you going to Winchester? Did I imagine that? Have I had a blow to the head over the weekend? I'm sure you said you were going to Winchester. Starting to worry about my own mental health right now. We've got some Komatsu wheel loaders for you after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, a bit of Komatsu wheel loader action coming up for you in just a second. But Dan says, was going to Winchester, but was a change at the last minute on Friday evening. Oh, dear, the flexible life of the plant operator, eh? Yes, Komatsu wheel loaders coming at you right now.
It's a privilege to be here today to introduce the Komatsu WA 700-8 wheel loader, the first of its kind to be delivered in Australia and New Zealand. This moment reflects Komatsu's continued dedication to providing innovative, efficient and sustainable solutions for our customers. The WA 700-8 has been thoughtfully engineered to meet the demands of industries like Golden Bay Cement.
So Golden Bay Cement, they make clinker out of limestone. We provide the limestone and they burn it in a kiln with coal, using coal, used tyres and wood waste. So used tyres and wood waste are substituting for coal. It's part of our carbon reduction in the making cement.
At its core is a 578 kilowatt engine, delivering the power required for heavy duty operations.
We're big on carbon footprint. One of the reasons why we got this loader is that it uses less fuel.
The WA 700-8 exemplifies Komatsu's commitment to minimising environmental impact. The wheel loader is Tier 4 compliant without the requirement for AdBlue. Values we know align with Golden Bay Cement sustainability goals.
So we use the 700 loaders. We load from various outputs from the quarry for a blend. Some parts of our quarry are unusable, but we try and blend them out to use the whole product. So the loader has actually got very good use for going from one side to the other, and we use the front end loader to load our Komatsu dump trucks.
Its reinforced frame and enhanced loader linkage are designed to withstand the rigours of quarry operations, ensuring reliable performance over the long term.
Why am I going Komatsu? I had a quarry I was operating in Westport. I rang up 2 suppliers. I only got a reply back from one of them, and it was Komatsu. We got a loader over from Sydney. It was a Komatsu loader, and they haven't put a foot wrong since. After that, our whole operation changed to Komatsu.
For a company like Golden Bay Cement, focused on innovation and continuous improvement, these capabilities are designed to support their goals of achieving more while maintaining high standards.
Going back to the removal of tech, Jim Turner says this, I'm still here. Seen a new tractor brand the other day offering brand new tractors with no electronics on. They've Cummins engines too. I truly hope this way of thinking happens in the plant sector. As always said, manufacturers should offer the same machine in various formats of bog standard, i.e. no computers, average spec and ultra high spec with all the mod cons. The demand for various specs will dictate what direction the market is heading in. Good point. Good point. All I would say about that, and I agree with you, all I would say about that is, given the high-tech nature of the industry now, how would the various manufacturers in the plant industry differentiate themselves from one another? You know, a lot of them are using the same engines, a lot of them are using the same drive lines, a lot of them are using the same components. If all you've got to offer as a differentiator is the technology, where does that leave your what do they call it? Your unique selling proposition, your USP. Where is your USP if you don't have tech to fall back on? But Jim, I agree with you 100%. Listen, I said to Jamie that I wasn't doing a poll. I'm not going to do one today, but maybe that's a poll for sometime in the next few days. Would you rather have the tech or would you rather not? Yeah. Bit late in the show to do it now, but I'll try to remember to do it tomorrow. How about that? We've got one more film to show you, and it's something you've probably not seen before. Stick around. remember that line from Star Trek? It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Do you remember that? I think it was in the Star Trekking song. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Well, this is a dozer, but not as we know it. Yep, that right there is the Piston Bully. Had the pleasure of working with those guys over in ConExpo and also in Utility Expo over in Kentucky. German company, but we only ever seem to work with them in America, bizarrely. Going back to, well, let me do this one very quickly. Andy Thornton's just joined us. Good morning. Happy shiny. Isn't it shiny happy people? But happy shiny people. Sorry, I'm late. No problem at all. Jim Turner says the backup service is what separates different manufacturers apart, and overall reliability and build quality. The problem with kind of all of those is you only know once you've committed. You only know how good the backup service is once you've actually got a machine and you've called upon it. And I'd say exactly the same about reliability and build quality. You only really know that when you've had the machine and you've experienced it. Whereas the addition of technology, not so much. You can see it before you press the button. Having said all that, Dan Cullen said, I prefer better hydraulics and power than technology. I got a funny feeling that might be an almost universal, or people would almost universally agree with that. I will do a poll. I'll write it down in a second. I will do a poll. We'll have a look at that. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue, which is extremely prescient and timely. You'll see when we get there. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. Gary, if you could take a look to your left or to your right and you see Christine looking like she is in desperate need of a pina colada, I fully understand if you'd like to check out right now. It's over to you. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back in just a moment after this. The eyes of the entire world were fixed upon Washington, D.C. on Saturday night. As the news broke of an active shooter incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the global news cycle ground to a halt. Social media feeds were flooded with grainy mobile phone footage of a hurried evacuation, and every major network launched into wall-to-wall coverage. We watched as the president was rushed from the room by a wall of Secret Service agents, the frantic energy of the scene hinting at the fear in the room. Even now, with the dust settling and reports confirming that Donald Trump was never in direct peril, the incident remains the singular focus of international discourse. It will be analysed, debated and dissected for days, if not weeks. We'll hear about security protocols, the psychological state of the crowd, and the political implications of a few loud noises in a high-security ballroom. The machinery of global media ensures that when a man of such power is even perceived to be at risk, the world is expected to hold its breath. But while the cameras were flashing in DC, a far more permanent and devastating tragedy was quietly being pushed off the bottom of the news scroll. Just 1 week ago, on a construction site in the UK, a 17-year-old lad named Shay Bladen went to work and never came home. For those of us in the demolition and construction trades, this isn't just another statistic. This was one of our own. Shay was at the very beginning of his journey, a young man described by those who knew him as genuine and caring. He had decades of life ahead of him, years of potential, and a family who expected him back for dinner. Instead, his life ended on a site, a fleeting mention in the local news before the world moved on to the next political scandal or celebrity tweet. Why are some lives treated as inherently more valuable than others? We're told from a young age that all lives are created equal, that every human being possesses an innate and equivalent worth. Yet the disparity in how we react to those two events tells a very different story. On one hand, we have a man who is aged and deteriorating before our eyes. Donald Trump is a figure defined by division, a man whose public life has been marked by petty cruelty and self-interest that seems to exclude the well-being of others. He represents the very pinnacle of power and ego. On the other hand, we have Shay Bladen. He possessed the quiet, unassuming value of a young person entering a hard-working trade. He represented the future of our industry. He didn't have a platform, a motorcade, or a press corps. He simply had his life, his character, and his work. Last night, Donald Trump slept easy in his bed. Despite the scare, he is unharmed. Despite the scare, he is unharmed and will return to his business of rhetoric and division without a mark on him. He'll continue to occupy the headlines and the halls of power. Shay Bladen, meanwhile, never got to say goodbye to his family. His seat at the table is now permanently empty. The business as usual for Shay's family has been shattered forever, and the world at large barely even noticed he was gone. In the construction and demolition industry, we understand the reality of risk. We know that we work in an environment where safety is paramount because the stakes are ultimate. Every time one of our own falls, it should be a moment of collective mourning and a catalyst for change. When a 17-year-old apprentice dies, it's a failure of the system that is supposed to protect the people who build our world. Yet there's a hollow feeling in seeing the global hysteria over a powerful man who was never actually hurt, while the actual death of a promising young worker is treated as little more than a footnote. It suggests a hierarchy of human value based on status, wealth, and notoriety, rather than the actual substance of a person's life or the potential they held. The media coverage would have you believe that the near miss in Washington is a greater tragedy than the direct hit on a construction site in the UK. They focus on the man who has everything and loses nothing, while ignoring the boy who had everything to look forward to and lost it all. Should the life of a divisive political figure who has already lived a long life of luxury and opulence carry more weight than the life of a lad just starting out in the trade? Shay Bladen was a member of our community. He was a son, a friend, and a colleague. His death is a profound loss to the fabric of our industry and to the family who loved him. The tragedy of Shay Bladen is not just that he died, but that his death is seen as less newsworthy than the safety of a man like Trump. It exposes a world that prizes the spectacle of power over the sanctity of life. We see the president being escorted away in a flurry of activity, ensuring his safety is the world's top priority. Where was the Where was that level of concern, that urgency for Shay? Where is the international outcry for the safety standards that failed a teenager on a British building site? We're expected to care about the threat to a leader who cares for no one but himself, while the loss of a genuine and caring lad is treated as an occupational hazard. A 17-year-old boy with his whole life ahead of him, is by any moral metric a more tragic loss than a near miss involving a man in his twilight years who has already left a stain on history. Shay Bladen deserved better. He deserved a world that valued his life enough to ensure that he came home from work. He deserved a society that mourned his passing with at least a fraction of the intensity it devotes to a political figure's security scare. The cameras will stay on the White House for days. The pundits will talk until they're hoarse about threat levels and security breaches. But in the quiet corners of our industry, and in the home of a grieving family, the true cost is being felt. One man walked away from a noise, and another never walked away from his job. If we are to truly believe that all lives are created equal, then the death of Shay Bladen should be the headline that breaks our hearts and demands our attention. It's time we stopped looking at the podiums and started looking at the people standing next to us on site. Because the value of life shouldn't be measured by the power a person holds, but by the person they were and the future they should have had. Shay Bladen was one of us, and his life was worth infinitely more than a fleeting mention in the newspapers. There you are. There's my thought for the day. Yes, Donald Trump running scared from a loud noise. 2 floors above or below, I can never remember. Let's have a look what we got here. Dan is saying, how are the holidays going? I'll leave Gary to answer that. In the Oman, we chose Komatsu over Caterpillar based on Komatsu's claim of 98% availability of spares for a wide range of their product anywhere in the Middle East within 24 hours, which they met. Yeah, claims are one thing, actually doing it quite another. I always thought a Peace Basher would be a good dozer. Fantastic view of the blade. Love seeing the Peace Bashers going out to work in convoys when the ski lifts have shut for the day. Yeah, I love watching, as I say, the piston bullies, the Prinoths and so on. Superb machines. And there's Gary responding. Good, Dan. Thanks, pal. How's your new site? Yeah, how is your new site? So, yes. I wrote a piece for the other channel about Mr. Trump and all of that good stuff, and why journalists shouldn't be breaking bread with somebody that's insulted and undermined them. Went to bed feeling quite happy with myself, quite pleased with myself. You know, bit of political rabble rousing. And I woke up the following morning. It turned out that most of the journalists had left in quite a hurry because there'd been a couple of loud bangs a few stories above them. So yes. Did I see that Lugong have made a copy of the Dresser dozer? How have they made a copy? They own Dresser, don't they? Or are they rebranding it? Is that what's happening? Dan says it's dusty and he's working with gardeners. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Gardeners, without whom, where would we get our fruit and veg? Speaking of which, I'm about, it must be 4 weeks now without a single solitary item of meat passing my lips. Man alive, I feel better for it. Really do. I know Dan is already converted, but yeah, feeling really, really good. The kettlebell's coming on as well. Swinging that about like a man possessed. All going well. Yes. So going back to. Well, let's quickly gloss over the White House Club. The White House Club? That's not right. The White House. It wasn't even at the White House. It was at the Hilton. The White House Correspondents' Dinner. There was a lone gunman who was quickly subdued. No danger to Donald Trump or his missus or his minions or whatever it might be. But all over and done with. Was it a third assassination attempt? Have there actually been any others? I'll leave you to decide on that. But yeah, literally global news of a near. It's a near miss that never really happened. And yet, we actually, as an industry, we had a death on a site in this country a week ago. Just move on. Just move on. And listen, I already know that lives are not created equal. I realise that if anything happened to King Charles, Donald Trump, Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney over in Canada, I realise that would be front page news, and somebody dying on a demolition or construction site would not. I understand that. But why not? It's a life. There's a family there. And I remember thinking this, I'm sure I've said this before, and if I have, I do apologise. A couple of days after my mum died, I had to go to the shops, supermarket up the road, driving along, and there were people going about their business, chatting and laughing, and I remember thinking, how dare you? Do you not know that my world has just been turned on its head? There's a family now, Shea Bladen's family will be feeling exactly the same as that, and they'll be looking at newspaper headlines and TV headlines, thinking nothing actually happened in DC. A man arrived with a gun, a couple of shots were fired, nobody was killed, nobody was injured. Donald Trump was never in any danger, and yet he splashed all across the headlines. We've just lost our 17-year-old son or brother or whatever he might be. And nobody gives a monkey's. That must be very, very hard to swallow. What do we got here? Mick Dalton says, construction deaths happen with grim regularity. Fatalities have risen 70% compared to 2018, 2019. Deaths in the sector often happen in places the public never see. And I listen, I realise that's how, excuse me, it's getting very warm in here. I realise that's how demolition and construction prefers to work. We like to be away from prying eyes, big holdings, working away down dark alleys and that sort of thing. I fully understand that. But just because I've never been to the White House. I've never been into the Oval Office. I've never sat at the Resolute desk. I've never seen Donald Trump's gold toilet. Don't want to. Never done any of that. That's not where the difference lies. Now, I do realise that demolition construction deaths do happen far too regularly. But is that it? Have we as an industry become numb to death in our workplace? So much so that we can get awfully excited about a near miss in America that didn't threaten the president at all. And yet we'll just, somebody died on a site in the UK. All right, okay. Right, crack on. Is that how we are? Is that where we are? Jim Turner says, mainstream will always play to the masses. They're also pet journalists. That's why they are a dying breed. They are a dying breed out in the wider world. If you actually want to find some proper journalists, go over to Substack. There's a guy on Substack. He is ex-CNN guy called Scott McFarlane, who doesn't actually have a political leaning. I mean, he reports very, very bluntly about the various failings of the Trump administration, but then he'll also point out the fact that the Democrats are a bunch of shit as well. So if you really want some proper journalists, Substack, a guy called Scott McFarlane, very, very good indeed. Gary Muirhead says, still shocks me to think that we're still taking risks with our lives in trenches, no support in place, and still think it's acceptable. Shocking. There are so many instances of that. Working in trenches when we know the collapse possibilities, we know that. Working at height when we know that's the biggest killer, we still do that. We know all the risks and we still continue to do it. What was the figures for the deaths on construction demolition site last year? Did it go up or did it go down? It actually went down. I don't know if I can still access it. Bear with me 1 second. I was working on something not so long ago. No, I can't see it, unfortunately. No, I did actually come up with a table, but no, I think we went up to. I really wish I could access this damn thing. Let me try it again. No, I can't see it. No, I did do a table. I think we were up to 45 last year, 35 this year. But if you look back, as Mick Norton rightly pointed out, since 2018, sort of pre-COVID was still doing that. Post-COVID, back up above those levels. It's very, very true. Dan saying, great monologue, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Chris Ford, catching us on the way out. Morning from the back of the class, but there again, breakdown fixed. Good to hear. Good to hear. Just struck by a line then. Echo and the Bunnyman. Something about going in the outdoor or something. I can't. It'll come to me as soon as I go off here. But yes, that's where we are. I think that will probably do us. There's not much more you can say about any of this. Just that kind of was the heart of my take on it. Ridiculous. They'd rather talk about an old imbecile than thought about a young lad who lost his life. Yeah. And let's face it, gunmen or otherwise, you'd have to think that Mr. Trump was on his way to meet his maker, who hopefully will send him downstairs for all eternity, but that's a whole other story. And yet you've got a 17-year-old lad who was probably looking at another 63 summers or thereabouts ahead of him. Girlfriends and wives and cars and houses and children, and gone in an instant. And we, as an industry, basically add him to the roll call. Same roll call as the 4 guys that were killed at Didcot, the 2 guys that were killed at Redcar, and so it goes on. Just a litany of death, destruction, and misery for families. I think my monologue on Friday was called Pride Undermined, and I think this is the ultimate version of it. You can look at London 2012 and the Shard and the walkie-talkie and the gherkin and the cheese grater, and even to a degree HS2 and Crossrail. And I realise they've not been without their problems, but you can look at them as engineering marvels and great achievements of the human spirit and our innovation. And yet, for all of that, we're still killing people. How can you possibly be proud of an industry that continues to kill people with such regularity? As I say, it took a dive last year. I think it was 30 or 35. I think it was maybe 35. But you're still talking about close on 1 a week. Realise that's not as high as people dying from asbestos. I realise that's not as high as people dying from suicide in our industry. But yeah, almost 1 a week being killed on our sites. I've drawn this comparison before. If there were an accident black spot near your front door, maybe a blind turn or the prow of a hill, or just a dodgy bit of road, and over the past year it claimed the lives of 35 people. The year before that, it claimed the lives of 45 people. A few years before that, it claimed the lives of 50 people. That road will be fixed. They put in measures to slow the traffic calming measures, speed bumps, those narrow, bloody nightmare things. Change the speed limit, put in a new set of traffic lights, whatever it might be, because we couldn't bear the thought of people dying in their 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s on the same stretch of road. And yet that's how many people die on the stretch of road that is the demolition and construction industry. What have we got here? Jim Turner says, it would be interesting to know how many CPCS, CSCS card holders have English as their first language, then see if it corresponds with accident statistics. I don't think there's any way of verifying that. I don't think there's any. I'll have a dig, but I don't think there's any way of verifying that. Dan saying condolences to his family and friends. Yeah, absolutely. Has there been any update on Didcot? No. I did hear a whisper at this time, not last week before, that somebody was about to be arrested or had been arrested, but it turned out to be a completely false rumor. Completely false. There was no validity in it whatsoever. So no, as it stands, we are still waiting. And don't forget that they've basically given themselves the whole of 2026. They basically said we expect to have this resolved and move on to possible prosecution in 2026. So they've still got 8 months. Not holding my breath. Such disrespect from the media and treating us as numbers, not actual human beings. It is the media. I do think the media have got a big role to play, but are we not the same? If you asked regularly somebody, a regular person in the demolition industry, name the 4 guys that were killed at Didcot, do you think they'd be able to name them? Name the 2 guys that were killed at Redcar. Do you think they'd be able to name them? The managing director of a demolition company in this country, do you think they'd be able to name them? I'm not convinced. Dan says the problem with the media is they don't like talking about construction only in negative ways on failings, but not deaths of guys on site. Surely that is the ultimate failing, isn't it? But we're at the point, as far as I know, I think the BBC covered the death of Shay Bladen online. It may well have been covered in local news, wherever it happened. But to the best of my knowledge, it didn't make the national news. Didcot did on the day it happened and the day after it, because David Cameron raised it in the House of Commons. But from that point on, it's not, aside from the once or twice that I've been on the telly, stamping my feet and swearing about it, it's not been on the telly. It's 4 people killed in a single incident. It's moved on. For all the wonderful things, equipment, and amazing people we have in our industry, we shouldn't be killing people. We shouldn't be killing anyone, and making sure everyone makes it home safely every day. Yeah, surely that is a base level, isn't it? To the point where we have people saying it's been 412 days since our last reportable incident. Would you want a medal? You've got a duty of care. That's the minimum we should expect. My youngest daughter leaves here of a morning, walks about 4 minutes to her office. She goes to work, does her work. She comes home, about 5:30 this evening. And she'll come home safely. Am I supposed to give them a trophy? Oh, thanks for not killing my daughter. She's not in construction. Well, she's allied to construction, but she's not in. But surely that's the absolute least we should expect. You know, when you go for an interview and, you know, what are the working hours? Oh, 9 to 5. And after that 5, can I go home? Yeah. Can you ensure that I will go home? Yeah. In this industry? Well, maybe. Probably. Hopefully. Can't guarantee it. Mick says, yes, the Stonehenge tunnel has officially been scrapped. The UK government ended this 1.7 billion A303 tunnel scheme after spending 179 million on planning and preparatory works. Now, I realise set against 1.7 billion, 179 million doesn't feel like a lot. But if somebody offered you a cheque for 179 million, you probably wouldn't turn it down, would you? And I realise that was all started under the previous administration. It's now a different administration that have cancelled it. Regardless of my thoughts on the project itself, I've driven the A303. And when summer rolls around, it is a fucking nightmare. It is a terrible, I mean, it's guaranteed traffic jams. They may dress it up another way. I've not seen that headline yet. They may dress it up another way, but trust me, that's not for environmental reasons. It's not for sustainability reasons. It's for money reasons. Joe Public will put up with a traffic jam and we'll keep the 1.7 billion, which would probably end up being about 2.5 by the time they'd actually built it. Jim says CPCS and CSCS tests should only be taken in English and inductions too. They're not, though, are they? Do you know? Is there not language assistance available at some of these test centres, if not all? There are no published stats showing CPCS NPAWS cards holders and their first language status. Absence of this data is itself revealing, ain't it? I just wonder what the cost of money wasted on HS2. I bet you it's eye-watering. It'll be in the billions. It'll be in the billions. And there's also the bit that you can't measure. There's the bits you can't measure. Obviously, you know, in an ideal world, we would have ended up with an HS2 that went from Birmingham on up to Leeds and to Manchester and so on down the line. But that stretch, or those two stretches, weren't just construction infrastructure projects. They were the promise of employment. They were the promise of, you know, once to actually build it, but they were the promise of legacy employment for maintenance and, you know, maybe upgrades to the stations along the way, and local businesses providing more food and drinks for the trains that were going past. All gone. All gone. Our friend Jamie's just said, congrats on the Role Model Award, Mark. I love your authenticity. Very well deserved. Thank you. I was with you right up until the very well deserved bit. And I'm not being self-deprecating. I am serious. It's this guy, really? I'm pretty damn sure you could come up with somebody better than that. Right, okay, people, that will do us. I've got other things to do. I've still got to finish this Jamie Tavui video, which has been a real ball ache. Every time I sit down to get it done, something else needs to be done, and I've got another one that's coming just now, but I will get it done in the next few days. And I will be back tomorrow for more of the same, 10 o'clock tomorrow. If you fancy it, if you can drag yourself away from the bar, Gary, please join us. If you can't, I won't hold it against you. I realise families have priority. Until tomorrow, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. Enjoy the sunshine wherever you may be, and I'll see you tomorrow. And just do me one small favour. Look after yourselves. See you soon.